scrupulously inspect for their capers that turn out to be humorously rat turds. And he is the one who, similarly to the Miles character in the original film, doesn't quite believe exactly what she's saying, but he trusts her because he cares for her. He's a very close friend, and he recommends this sort of new age pop psychiatrist, David Kimner, played by Leonard Nimoy, obviously the uber logical Spock from Star Trek, who makes a lot of sense in casting for where this role goes that we'll get to. But I just like so much about what Donald Sutherland's role is meant to do in this is to be just very good friends with this person, to really care and empathize with this experience that she's going to. And they even detail out like some warm hangout scenes with these characters where, he's cooking for her in this very intimate way, and she's explaining her fears and this, about what's happened to her husband. And he has this almost very humorous line where he's like, well, maybe he's just cheating, or maybe he's like turned gay, or maybe he's a Republican now. Like, I don't know. And instead he tries to divert the conversation away from, I don't think you're crazy. Do the thing with your eyes, and makes her like wiggle like a fucking like cartoon character, like rolling her eyes around. And it's this very cute, just like quirky, apparently like improvised moment between the actors. And like that's the kind of thing that this movie has, where it's really going to try to highlight the lack of the stripping of humanity by peppering it with so much humanity. And that's where I think Donald Sutherland was just such like an amazing addition to this movie because so much of his history as an actor is just bringing so much life to characters.
And his counterpart, Brooke Adams, as Elizabeth, is really good too. She's got like this, you said, that the eye rolly thing. She has kind of like an animated happiness about her when she is in really good moments with Donald Sutherland, like when they get to kind of let their guard down and be human beings together. She's really good at going back and forth with him naturally, and that is the word. It's kind of, they just have a very natural chemistry and kind of a natural likeness towards each other, and it's very human. It feels very lived in, and it does have that kind of hangout quality. So, and
what the destination is because you know the original film, right? So like that's so that's why it's like such an important thing to highlight. And I also just love this era of when they would trust actors to really just like kind of strip away the more old school actorly form and just do something like more natural like that. Like this is what I think made Donald Sutherland like such an important actor of this time, because obviously he passed away recently, and there were a lot of like outpourings of love and appreciation for his catalog of movies, and there were a lot of obituaries that talked about his very unconventional path to like being a movie star, where he was like actually kind of a young boy with health problems, who wasn't like super into, like he wasn't going to school for acting or anything like that. He was studying like engineering, I think, in at the University of Toronto, and he entered like a comedy troupe and eventually moved to the UK and became sort of a theater actor. So it's very interesting that his eventual screen acting was when they kind of tried to strip away some of the theater techniques and do some stuff that was like a little bit more raw with him. But there was one clip that someone shared that broke my heart, which was like this interview he gave, I think it was 60 Minutes, where he discussed that he had these very long-term like self-esteem issues as an actor throughout his career. And he traced them back to his mother saying what he felt was that he was not particularly good looking, because he asked her if he was good looking, and she responded apparently by hesitating and saying, "Your face has character, Donald." And honestly, if you watch the clip, I would recommend like just going and looking that up. Look up Donald Sutherland like 60 Minutes to anyone who's listening, and you will tear up watching Donald Sutherland. Yeah, he starts like crying, and he was like, the idea that his mother, and he's like 60, it's happened like 60 years before he was being interviewed about it, and it would still hurt him as if it had just happened, that his mom thought he was like ugly or like unattractive, and what that meant for like his career. And I don't know, there was just something, personally, I think that he's like a good looking guy. He's maybe not traditionally handsome in like the 1960s like leading man look or something like that.
No, but the thing about him is like he's got it is, part of it is the charm. Part of it is his like, he can be silly, he can be serious, he can be angry. Like he really does have. He's such a versatile actor for one, and then I think that would just translate to him probably as a person. He's probably a very. I haven't watched a lot of interviews, but from what I have seen, he comes off as a very intelligent, well-spoken, well-thought-out kind of person. He's not a very impulsive person, and yeah, I think like that itself is sexy, you know. So I think that adds to it.
And yeah, he had a unique screen presence to him, which is like, you know, more important to the longevity of your career than necessarily your looks. And I think definitely. He obviously benefited from the fact that in the 1970s, around this time especially, you know, they were kind of looking for some of that lankier, long-haired, you know, kind of anti-establishment energy that he could kind of provide, because, you know, off screen he was an anti-war activist. On screen he was like, you know, very originally he was like one of the charming cinematic symbols of that kind of sentiment with the movie MASH amid the Vietnam War. And you know, he was in Animal House, he was in the fucking Dirty Dozen. I love that scene in the Dirty Dozen when he's like super childish and he like sticks his tongue out while pretending to be like the army general and like that he has a bunch of power over other people. You know, he really killed it in the 1970s. And I think the stretch from Klute to Don't Look Now to this is like an unbelievable run.
That is nuts.
You know, like like he got to be the kind of private neo-noir detective, you know, with Jane Fonda for Pacula, which is very much a style of film that has inspired this film. And then you go into sort of Don't Look Now, which is, for me, like that's where more of that gothic horror existentialism kind of comes.